Hello, welcome to Unit 6 of Academic Writing. We have already completed Unit 5 where we saw the importance of grammar as well as vocabulary in writing. Next, we are moving on to the mechanics and conventions of writing. Mechanics means the technicalities or the technical aspects of something. And what we see in this unit are mainly three things. It sums up the major points to keep in mind. They are punctuation marks, documentation styles, and also academic integrity. So, punctuation marks, you already know the different types of punctuation marks like uh, full stop, question mark, comma, semicolon, and so on. Then documentation style means the way your writing is documented. Mostly it deals with two different types of documentation. And towards the end of this unit, we'll see more about academic integrity. So first we'll be moving on to punctuation marks. So every day we come across different types of punctuation marks and we use them in our writing. But now here we are going to see in detail where exactly or when exactly should we use a particular punctuation mark. So what are punctuation marks? The key points. First of all, they are a bunch marks of signs used to bring clarity of expression in writing. So the first function of punctuation mark is to bring about clarity, uh, clearness. It tries to reduce ambiguity or vagueness in our writing. Next, it helps the writer clearly convey the message. So, the way the sentence is constructed is very important, and how we put the punctuation marks. If you change the place of the punctuation marks, the meaning can change entirely. So, that's why we should know when and where to use the punctuation marks. And then, of course, it brings accuracy in writing. So whatever we want to convey, it has to be conveyed accurately and exactly. Next, it strengthens the arguments. So when we are arguing our points, uh, usually these punctuation marks will help us to strengthen that argument. Then it helps emphasize the major idea discussed in the paper or article. So emphasize means to give force, to stress the point we want to stress. And another warning given here is that the wrong use of punctuation marks can make ideas vague and also complicate meaning. This way we should be very careful in placing our punctuation marks. If we use them wrongly, the whole sentence may look ambiguous, vague, or even complicated. So the first punctuation mark we are going to see is comma. Comma is very common, and we are going to see how this punctuation mark has to be used. Use a comma after certain introductory words or phrases. So when we introduce something, and in the beginning of the sentence you find that introductory phrase or words coming up. So in the example we have seen, to begin with. So that is the phrase used here to introduce that. So after that introduction, we have a comma. To begin with, let me introduce the purpose of my trip. Next, use a comma to separate two adjectives when the adjectives are interchangeable. So when you have more than one adjectives used in the same sentence, and these two adjectives can be interchangeable. That means one can be used instead of the other or in the place of the other. That's the meaning of interchangeable. If you look at the example, you'll find the long, tedious session on new tax reforms did not produce the desired effects. So here, the two adjectives used are long and tedious. And to separate these two adjectives, we find a comma used there. So interchangeable means we could use tedious in the place of long or vice versa. It will not make any difference in meaning. Next, to separate two independent clauses connected by and, but, for, or, so, etc. So when we have two independent clauses joined or connected by words like and, but, for, or, so, here we can use a comma, but if the sentence is short, we can also easily avoid the comma there. Now look at the sentence here. The doctor says his fever is gone, but he is still feeling tired. So we have got two clauses, and we don't have a connecting word like and or but or for. So any of the conjunctions are not used here. So instead of that conjunction, you find the comma used. And if the sentence is short, definitely we can avoid the comma. Still, the sentence would look okay. Next, to set off a quote from the rest of the sentence. Now, when there is a quotation in a sentence and you want to focus only on the quotation, so you want to separate the quotation from the rest of the sentence, then we use the comma before the quotation. Like in the example, according to old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So you find the quotation is separated from the rest of the sentence by a comma. Next function is to list nouns in a sentence. Suppose you find many words used at a time, one after the other, like in parallelism. Parallelism means using similar words in a sentence, like all adjectives or all verbs or all nouns. Here you find so many nouns coming one after the other. So after every noun, the punctuation mark comma is used there. Fruits like papaya, apricot, pear, kiwi, and peach are considered suitable to control blood sugar. So, in order to separate each of these nouns, comma is used. Next is to separate interrupting words and expressions in a sentence. Now, what is the meaning of interrupting? Interrupt means actually to stop. Here, if you look at the sentence given there, the famous composer Mozart is known for his symphonies. Now we look at the word in red, Mozart. So you just leave out that Mozart and read. Then you find there's a flaw in that sentence. The famous composer is known for his symphonies. And that flaw is actually interrupted by that word Mozart. Here when there is an interrupting word coming in between a sentence, we use a comma before as well as after that interrupting word. So the famous composer, Mozart, again, is known for his symphonies. Now we come to the second punctuation mark, that is semicolon. How a semicolon is used. First, use a semicolon to separate two sentences when there is no coordinating conjunction such as and, but, or, nor, for, because, etc. So here you find two separate sentences are used here, but without a coordinating conjunction like but, or, nor, or, because. Look at an example there. I know your father. He has close associations with my uncle. Actually, these two sentences can be joined by using because. Let's see. I know your father because he has close associations with my uncle. So actually, we are saying here that conjunction, coordinating conjunction, is left out, and instead of that, a semicolon is used here. So the semicolon is functioning like a coordinating conjunction here. Next, if the two sentences are joined by a conjunctive adverb such as however, consequently, therefore, or moreover, use a semicolon before the conjunctive adverb and a comma after it. Now look at the example here. There are states that demand a greater degree of autonomy. However, this can lead to a situation where the other states make similar demands. So here you use the word however, which is a conjunctive adverb. So you see, before the adverb is used here, a semicolon is placed there. And after the adverb, a comma is placed. Next, use a semicolon to separate items in a series if there are commas within the items. Here, what happens is that when we use too many commas, and in order to make a distinction between each set, here we are using a semicolon. Look at the example. The group consisted of Edward North, BA B.Ed, William Robinson, MA PhD, Mary Allen, MD PhD. So here you find each person's qualification is going along with the person. So Edward North, after there is comma, after each of the degrees BA, B.Ed. Again, if you put a comma after that, then you find too many commas are put there and it can be very confusing. So we find that after one person's qualifications, you put a semicolon. That is separate that person. Then you go to the next person, that is William Robinson, again comma, his degrees MA, PhD. So after PhD, we come to the end of that person's qualification. That's why we put another semicolon there. Then the last person, Mary Allen, MD, PhD. At the end, we have a full stop. So when you have to use too many commas in a sentence, to separate each item in that sentence, we use semicolon so that the idea can become very clear. Next use is a semicolon can also be used to replace a period or full stop if the writer wishes to reduce the gaps between linked sentences in a paragraph. So the semicolon also can be used instead of a full stop when you have got two independent sentences. Look at the example. It is dangerous to text, read messages when you drive. Some say it is more dangerous than drunk driving. Actually, this can be separated into two different sentences. That means after when you drive, you can put a full stop, and then the next sentence begin from some say. Some say it is more dangerous than drunk driving. That is a separate sentence. But here, instead of a full stop, the writer is using semicolon. Next we come to colon. It is used to introduce a series of items in a list. Suppose in a sentence, you find so many words used to describe something or to enumerate something. So before that list, we put a semicolon. Look at the example. The following holy books were mentioned in the essay. After you have a colon. So what follows is the names of the holy books like Bible, Bhagavad Gita, Quran, and Guru Granth Sahib. So when you have what a list of things introduced, after the introduction, a colon is placed. Next, to separate two independent clauses where the first introduces or explains the second. So you have got two independent clauses. One is trying to explain or introduce another sentence. Then after the first sentence, you have a colon. For example, I have not even completed half my revision. And the next sentence is, my examination is around the corner. So between these two independent clauses, we have a colon. Next is to introduce a quotation that is independent from the main sentence. Example, Thiruvalur was arguably one of the earliest Indian writers to observe the ecological function of rains. So what follows is a quotation. The world survives because of the rains, and therefore rain is known to be the nectar of immortality. So in order to separate the quotation from the main sentence, you find a colon coming before the quotation, and of course the quotation is in quotation marks. Now we come to double quotation mark. As you already know, quotation mark is definitely used for separating a quotation. So first example, only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Robert F. Kennedy. So that is a quotation by Robert F. Kennedy, which is put in quotation marks. Next, it is to set off titles of essays, journals, magazine, articles, poems, and short stories. So when we are writing about maybe some the titles or authors or magazines, articles, or poems and short stories and all that. So those things can be put in quotation mark. For example, in her essay, Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, Laura Mulvey addresses the male gaze of female body as object of visual pleasure. So you find the name of the essay is put in quotation mark. That is Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. Next we come to single quotation mark. First use or function of single quotation mark is to introduce a word or phrase as a technical term. So if you look at the example here, the word ecology derives from the Greek oikos, meaning household or place to live. So here you find the words are highlighted here because we are talking about uh, a particular word and its origin and the meaning. So these words are put in single quotation mark. Then to emphasize a word or a term. So in a sentence you want to stress or emphasize a particular word. Let's look at the example. Canada and Australia are called settler countries. So here you want to stress or emphasize the word settler. That's why it is put in single quotation. Next, to show a quotation inside a quotation. So when two quotations are coming together, one is inside another quotation. So here they got an example. Anand reiterated his resolve to strive, to seek, and not to yield. So here you find the words to strive, to seek, and not to yield is actually somebody else's words, not the words of Anand. That's why it is put in single quotation. So you have got two different quotations. So to separate one quotation from the other, you find the second quotation is given in single quotation. Next punctuation mark is apostrophe. Now, what are the functions of apostrophe? First, it is to show contractions and possession. Contraction means shortening, and possession means belonging to someone, of someone. First example, Mohanan's car got stuck in a pothole. So in order to show possession, that means the car belongs to Mohanan. It is the car of Mohanan. That's the meaning of Mohanan's car, which shows possession. Second example is they have verified the certificates of all candidates. So you have a shortening here. They have is shortened as they have. Now another warning here is that contractions are not common in academic writing. So contractions are not actually considered as standard. That's why we should try to avoid contractions or short forms in our academic writing. Now we come to parenthesis and bracket. See, the word is pronounced as parenthesis, not parenthesis. It is parenthesis. So the first function of parenthesis or bracket is to enclose information that clarifies the meaning of the preceding or following sentence. That means we have got a sentence or a phrase, and then in order to clarify that particular phrase, some explanation is given in the bracket. For example, the present AGDP, an IPS officer from 1981 batch, has expressed his concern over the rising attacks on women in public places. So here what is given in bracket is an IPS officer from 1981 batch. So that gives more clarification about the present AGDP, maybe some added information. Next is to expand abbreviations and to insert dates. Sometimes when we write sentences, we use short forms, abbreviations. But as a rule, we put that full form in brackets. See the example. RAC, reservation against cancellation, tickets are allotted berths only if passengers with confirmed tickets do not turn. So here the full form of RAC is given in bracket. Next, in academic writing, parentheses are used to give in-text citation. Now, what is in-text citation? They are usually about name of the author or year of publication, page number, etc. For example, the studies of delinquent adolescents, Backhouse and James, 1969, emotionally disturbed students, and so on. So you find what is given in the bracket is actually the names of the authors and also the year of that publication. Next, brackets are used to insert a clarification, a translation, parenthesis within parenthesis, a change in capitalization. Let's look at the example. The final essay in Unto This Last ad valorem according to value gives a definition of value that does not depend on money and the exchange of labor. Here you find what is given in the bracket. According to value is a translation of ad valorem, meaning according to value. Another example is my aunt. I never knew what she looked like. She died before she was born. Left the brooch to my mother. So you have two brackets or one parenthesis within a parenthesis. So in order to separate these two brackets, we use different types of brackets. So the first one is I never knew what she looked like. That is one bracket. And another one is she died before she was born. So here you have got two different sentences coming inside the quotation. Inside the bracket. That's the meaning of parenthesis within a parenthesis. Next we come to dash. It is also known as M dash. It is slightly different from N dash and the hyphen. So you have got three different dashes coming here. And the shortest one is hyphen. Then you have got N dash and M dash. So M dash is the longest one. And hyphen is the shortest. And N dash is in the middle. Okay. So we can get easily confused with all these three dashes and hyphen. Dash is 3 times longer than a hyphen. So it is just to know how long is a dash. A comma, colon and a parenthesis can be replaced by a dash. So we can use a dash instead of a comma, colon or even a parenthesis. It is used to indicate a break in a sentence and also to give some additional information. So here we are breaking the sentence midway, maybe to give some extra information. Example, no student, not even the leader of the college, was present to receive the chief guest. So here it is trying to give some stress, maybe an additional information. It's not even the leader of the college was present. Next, a dash is also used to indicate inclusive page numbers and dates. So when we are citing some page numbers, between the two numbers we are putting a dash. Like in the example, the guidelines are provided on pages 41 to 49. So between these two numbers we put the dash. Next we come to hyphen. Put the hyphen between two parts of a compound word. Now compound word means we use two different words to combine and make one word. So in between these two words we use hyphen, like ill-fitting clothes, well-written article. So these are compound words. Then insert a hyphen before a suffix or after the prefix. You find some prefixes used here, like anti-American. So between these two words, you have a hyphen. Post-war, half-hearted. Again, they look very similar to compound words, but actually they are prefixes. Next, compound numbers less than 100 are split with a hyphen. So when we write numbers less than 100, we use hyphen to separate these two words, like 42, 75. So you find hyphen coming in between these two words in a number. Now we come to period or full stop. I think it's very easy to understand uh, where full stop is put. But let's see. Use a period at the end of a statement. I think that is very clear. In order to show that our sentence is coming to a close, we put a full stop. Then use a period after an abbreviation. So whenever you are using a short form, example itself is an example. So he put E full stop G full stop. Then we have AM, then Mr. These are our short forms. MA. Then sentences ending with question mark or exclamation marks do not require period. So another rule is that if you have got question mark or exclamatory mark, better to avoid full stop. It is not necessary. Then in sentences ending with parenthesis, the period is placed outside parenthesis. But if parenthesis contains a full sentence, the period is placed inside parenthesis. So if a bracket is used and if the sentence inside the bracket is incomplete, then the full stop will come outside the bracket. Only if you have got a complete sentence inside the parenthesis, you need to put the full stop inside. Otherwise, usually the punctuation mark period is outside. Look at the example. You are unlikely to get a good hotel room in Munnar in December and January, the peak travel season. So the peak travel season is not a sentence, it is just a phrase. This way the full stop is coming outside the bracket. Now we come to capitalization. When and where we should use capital letter. I think some of you, at least most of you know some of the rules regarding capital letter use. Let's see. First use is when we use the title of a book, works of art and literature. So names of books and all that, like The Mill on the Floors, A Tale of Two Cities. So these titles of the books are used in capitals. Capitalize the initial letters of words in the title of an article or essay, chapters of a book, and titles of journals. So not only names of books, but also even letters or initial letters of article, essay, or chapters of a book, and titles of journals. So I have given the example of the previous unit. The title of that unit was Vocabulary and Grammar for Academic Writing. So that comes in capitals because that is a title. Then we have a list of uses for capital letters. First of all, proper nouns. That means persons or place name or geographical names like Shakespeare, uh, any person's name for that matter. Then country's name like France. Then we have Suez Canal, the Himalayas. They're all geographical names. Then to begin a sentence, so whenever you start a sentence, the first letter of that word has to be capital letter. The titles with personal names. So sometimes we, along with the person's name, we have certain titles or uh, designation. For example, Mr. Dane. So Mr. After Mr. we have a full stop. Then Doctor Aaron, because they are all short forms. Junior Sampson. Then we have names of certain organizations like Oxford University, International Congress. So you can think of various organizations. All these names will come in capital letters. Then we have what academic subjects like mathematics, sociology, biotechnology, etc. Next we have days, months, seasons, and events. Days like Sunday, Monday, and all that. Then months like March. Then like seasons like maybe Onam or Christmas. Then we have events like May Day. Then we have races and religions. We know that human races are different. So each of these human races, uh, we use capital letters like Caucasians, Mongolians, Negroid, and all that. Then you have the Arabs, they're also a race. Then you have Hinduism, another religion, or Islam, Christianity. Whenever we start these words, uh, capital letters are used in the beginning. Then you have got an exemption here. Articles, prepositions, and coordinating conjunctions are not capitalized unless they are the first word in in a title or in a sentence. Articles like a, the, and all that. Prepositions like to, for, under, over, and all that. And coordinating conjunctions like and, but, or, because. So usually these words are not capitalized unless they come at the beginning of a sentence. I think with that we come to the end of this section of Unit 6. I think we'll continue with the same unit. Until then,